So the first question, okay, the new industrial policy. See, if you have seen previous year questions and all, okay, economy and all is not just restricted to the current affairs. Okay, so they do ask lot of questions from the static topics, historical underpinning of economy. I mean, historical aspects of Indian economy, the related to those topics. So some of the major topics that you need to cover, right? So you have your balance of payment, you have your export, you have your capital investments, okay, investments, then industries, various sectors, industries, manufacturing sector, okay, then your fiscal policy, monetary policy, not from prelims point of view per se, but from the conceptual part of it. That's what they are going to ask. Okay, and most of the historical evolution of Indian economy, one or two questions they have always asked from that also. So don't just simply focus on current events related to economics. So there are around 10-15 topics relating to economy which you can cover from the history. So NC, I have given the sources, some of the sources which you can refer. Here we have tried to cover around 10-15 topics. That also you keep it for revision, for the mains exam as well. Okay, so over here the first question is, the new industrial policy gave a fillip to the industry amidst severe economic crisis. So all of you, all of you are aware, if you talk about the history of Indian economy, right, 90s is considered to be a watershed with respect to Indian economy. That means our economic policy underwent a drastic change in the year 1991. So we undertook the LPG reform, right? Reform, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. As part of this LPG reform, various sectors of our economy were liberalized. So similar, I mean, including our industry. Okay, so industrial sector also was reformed. Okay, it was liberalized, right? So that in that context, this question has been asked. So the question is asking, okay, to what extent, I mean, if you try to understand what we are trying to ask over here is, to what extent this industrial policy of 1991 helped to address industrial problems that was associated with the economic crisis of the 80s and 90s. I'll repeat again. How did the industrial policy of 1991 address the industries, problems associated with the industries, okay, that were caused due to economic crisis? So here your focus should be mainly on industrial sector. Okay, it should be mainly on industrial sector. So some of you have written the answers. Okay, so you have written about the entire economic crisis. Here the question is specifically asking you industries. Okay, industrial sector. So how did the new industrial policy help to address the problems that the industrial sector faced due to economic crisis? I hope you understood the difference. So most of you, if you are trying to write about the entire economy, then your answer focus is wrong. Okay, so what you have to focus, what is really required here is that how industries suffered. Okay, then in 1991, reform in industrial sector was undertaken, and how did it benefit, or to what extent it benefited? So you can also add the shortcomings. This is what is required. See, that is what you try to break it down. Understand, spend around 20 to 30 seconds. Spend about 20 to 30 seconds to understand what the question is actually asking. So as you are aware, industrial sector, like all other sector, external sector, exports, industries, and our rupee value, all these sectors were facing problems. Okay, with respect to industrial sector, what problems they were facing? How did this 1991 reform address this? Okay, and what were the outcome of it and the shortcomings of it? This is what is required in your answer, right? So amidst severe economic crisis. So your introduction will be, what was the crisis? Maybe you can start with that. Okay, to give a context. So what was the crisis? You can say international issues, you can say political issues, you can talk about the BOP, few lines. That's not the main focus. So few lines on these things you can write, that in 90s we faced the following situation led to economic crisis, where all sectors of our economy were facing stress, including industrial sector. Okay, in addition to that, okay, you can also give before before 90s, the industrial sector was also faced with inefficiency, right? Inefficiency, okay, underutilization of capital, low investments, low competition, okay, red tapeism, okay, monopoly by public sector, etc. So because of all of this, industrial sector were facing all these things, you will write. Then you will write a little bit about the features of industrial policy 1991. Okay, so you will write about the industrial policy, the salient features of that, few points you can write. Okay, and then, okay, so this will be 1, okay, this will be 2, this will be 3, and main focus will be your 4. That means what was the outcome, how did it benefit? So it gave a fillip towards the industrial sector. How did it help in give a fillip? Okay, it increased efficiency, it increased competition, it brought in investments, it brought in new technology. Okay, like that you will write. Okay, so it allowed for private players to come into the sector, reduced public sector monopoly. All these things are the effect of the industrial sector, industrial reform. Then you can conclude, okay, you can conclude saying the shortcomings, okay, shortcoming of the industrial sector, industrial policy, what were the problems associated with it. That means you can give some data. Okay, stagnant manufacturing sector, okay, distortion of industrial pattern, displacement of labor, absence of incentive to raise efficiency. Like that you will write conclusion saying that, okay, though it helped to address some of the problem, these problems were left out. Okay, something like that you can write. So this is what is expected. I'll repeat again in a very simple manner. So first you will write, okay, the context. So the context, you will say what was the economic crisis, okay, and then how the industries were performing at that time. Second, you will write what are the features of the industrial policy. Third, its outcome, that is the positive outcomes. In conclusion, you can conclude with the shortcomings. Okay, shortcomings. That much you have space and time only for so much, so you can probably stick to this. Okay, so this is what you are expected to write. So this is a very important topic. Okay, the economic reforms, 90s reforms, economic reform, whether it is liberalization, privatization, and all that. So you have to know about it. Okay, from the mains point of view, you know more detail about it. Here we have just focused on the industrial sector. So in your answer key, the details are there. Okay, in the details about the new industrial policy, what are the features about it, okay, what is the outcome, merits of it, limitations of it, etc., has been mentioned. Okay, so remember some data and facts. Okay, so when you're talking about the economic crisis, you can add some data. When you're talking about the outcome, positive, you can write some this one. That means you can say there was increase in the growth, industrial growth. Okay, you can write some data to substantiate your answer. Like that, some data has to be incorporated into your answer. Is that okay, guys? So this is your new industrial policy. So what mistake I have found that many of you have done is that, those who have corrected, what you have done is that you have not restricted to focusing only on industries. You have just generally wrote about the impact of the reforms of LPG. Okay, so here the question is very specific. They're asking you new industrial policy and its impact on the industry in the midst of economic crisis. Is that okay? So try to understand like that. So try to break it down, structure it in your question paper, and then start your answer. Okay, guys. So this is the first question. Next. Okay. Next is infrastructure is the key driver of growth and overall development of Indian economy. Okay, discuss. So again, if you break it down here, the question is very simpler compared to the previous one. So how it will lead to growth and development. So you need to focus on growth also. You need to focus on development also. So when you're talking about development, you will have to focus on inclusive development as well as sustainable development. So why these two things are important also is that will give you more dimensions when you're writing your answer. So when you're talking about inclusive, right, you will talk about how infrastructures like schools, okay, hospitals, this will lead to an inclusive growth. And sustainable, renewable energy infrastructure is an example of how development can be sustainable. Okay, inclusive growth and development, sustainable growth and development. Okay, so these two things you have to keep in mind. Okay, so yeah, so how infrastructure leads to growth and development. Okay, so in that context, you should be able to start your this one either by saying what is infrastructure, what does infrastructure include. You can either start like that, or you can define what is growth and development, something like that. So a simpler way is here, because there's no context per se, it's a very general topic, there's no context. See, in the previous one, 1990s, okay, is a context, so you can always give that context as an introduction, or you can give some data relating to that 90s as an introduction. Whereas over here, since it's a very generic topic, okay, so it's a very general and static topic, you can just start with a definition. So what is an infrastructure? Okay, so in the answer key, I have given the definition of infrastructure. Like, it's a basic building block required for an economy to function efficiently. These are fundamental facilities and system serving a country. I mean, you can write it in your own words, but at least the key thing should be there. And also remember that infrastructure can be like, not just your physical infrastructures and, related to roads and this one, also schools and hospitals, social infrastructure also needs to be mentioned, okay, somewhere in your answer. So that is one thing. So you can start your this one with definition. Okay, you can start your answer with definition. Now, how does infrastructure lead to growth? So this can be divided probably into two parts. I mean, if you look into it, so two parts. One is you can generally make some statements how how infrastructure is necessary for growth. Okay, so it helps in generating employment. Okay, itself, building infrastructure itself will generate employment, and since it brings about a more efficiency, more growth, in turn will lead to more employment, etc. So it generates more employment. Okay, it leads to ease of doing business. It increase in investments, leads to increase in investment. See, who will come and invest? Which country they will come and invest? They will invest in those countries which has good infrastructure. So like that. So you will write about that. Okay, it leads to smooth functioning, okay, of economy. It increases efficiency. How does it increase efficiency? For example, reduces wastage. Okay, how? You can give an example of agriculture. So having, okay, agricultural infrastructure like warehouse or cold storage, etc., it will lead to reduce wastage. Like that, you have to give examples. You can't simply go on writing points. So when you write in points, increase efficiency, enough. You don't have to elaborate on that. You just write increase efficiency, arrow mark, because it reduces waste. You understood? That's how you write. You don't have to write big sentences. When you write big sentences, what will happen is you will fall short of time. So you will write first one, increase efficiency. Okay, how? By reducing wastage. This is how your statement will look. Then you will write example, agriculture, okay, perishable goods can be transported using cold cold wagons, wagons in railways. It will reduce wastage. Like that. Second, it will generate employment. That's all. You just stick to those words. Don't have to write big sentences. Easy for the examiner to evaluate also, easy for you to write also. So you can write more points. If the examiner sees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, many points, it gives an impression, oh, this person has written a lot also. Okay, so it has added benefit like that. Okay, so you make sure that you write these things like this, okay, in simple sentences, 1 or 2 words, and finish it off. Don't have to write, okay, infrastructure is very, very important for us to bring about more efficiency into the economy. Like that, don't write. Write it very simple, increase efficiency. Everybody can understand this. Okay, so like this in points 1, 2, 3 you can write. So general, then you can take a few sectors, okay, a few sector as an example, or you can add it within that. So it will lead to sustainable growth. For example, investing in renewable energy like solar panels will reduce demand for what? Demand for fossil fuel. So reduces import. Okay, increase savings, more savings, more investment, like that. So this is how you are able to write. Correct. Now I hope this question is not that difficult. The way you write will add that 1 or 2 marks, which is more than enough. Okay, so most of you would be getting 4 to 5 marks. You write a beautiful answer with more points or appear to have more points, okay, you will be able to get around 7 marks. That's the difference. 1 or 2 marks difference will make has a lot of impact the final score. Okay, in this, what material would you want, right? So the contents are general in nature. You should be able to write good answer, right? So since it's a discuss this one, so you will not say that, oh, infrastructure is not necessary. Okay, they are waste of money. That's not what is expected here. Discuss means you have to write the other side is, I agree to it, but discuss in this context, you won't say that, oh, infrastructure is not necessary, like we all should be in the Stone Age, no infrastructure. That's not what it is asking. So here, discuss may, you can just add a few points as a conclusion itself, that there are several challenges in infrastructure development. Like, for example, okay, the cost is quite high, like building roads and other things. What model, okay, what model of investments that you are expecting, whether it is BOT model, whether it is hybrid model, other things like that. Okay, then about the environmental issues, right? If you don't build roads, environmentally sensitive roads, or you are building cutting down trees, etc., so therefore more sustainable infrastructure projects is necessary. Then it can be like regional imbalance can lead, if you don't plan it properly, there can be regional imbalance, because infrastructure, if it is concentrated in only one area of the country, then it will lead to regional imbalance. So these challenges needs to be addressed. If it is so, then it will lead to an inclusive and sustainable growth and development. That will be a part of your conclusion, as well as the addressing the demand of the question. Is that okay? So what will your structure will be? Define what is an infrastructure. Okay, how infrastructure will lead to growth, and give examples. If you have some data, okay, please do add to that also. Okay, and then third one is, in your conclusion, you will talk about the challenges associated with your infrastructure development. Is that okay, guys? So this is what is required for your answer. Okay.